Hey guys, it's Kayla and welcome back. Today I'm coming to you live from, well, I'm not live, but I'm coming to you from the floor of my office, and I wanted to highlight a bunch of plants that I have that I just don't show enough love to. I am always on my channel talking about the same plants over and over, so I want to show some love to the plants that I don't really talk about that often. My thought process goes, well, I want to wait for it to get bigger and look more beautiful, but why not just do it now? Number one is this Philodendron goldii that I've had for a few years now, and for about 2 years it literally was doing nothing. I had it in good conditions. I realized I wasn't watering it often enough. It wasn't dying or looking droopy, but it's a very hardy plant, as you can see. I mean, you can just tell that it's pretty hardy. And so when I finally started watering it more, it started pushing out new growth, and I was just kicking myself because I was thinking if I'd have started watering it more often 2 years ago, I would have this big giant one. But anyway, this is what we have now. It just put out a new leaf maybe a month ago, and I've already got another one coming in now. But the thing that I love about this is, number one, let me just say, I think that the goldii is really underrated. I really do. And it's just because I don't see people talking about them often enough. The leaf pattern is kind of mind-blowing to me. Each leaf has several leaves on it. Like, this is just one right here, and the bigger they get, the more circular they'll go. And like this one, for example, look at this one. That's amazing. I think that looks so great. I haven't ever had pests on it or anything. It does take up a lot of space, so I have to like stake it up and kind of bring it in a little bit so that it's not sprawled out all over the place and like knocking stuff over. It does like to gather a lot of dust, so I do have to wipe the leaves off very often, but it's definitely very interesting. I did hear it was a slow grower, but not for me, not lately, not since I've been watering it more. I'm actually quite shocked at myself that it took me so long to, you know, pick up on the cues and realize this needs to be watered more often. But I guess I just had so many other things, so many other plants I was focusing on, and I just let this one kind of fall by the wayside. But you know, she's back in action, and we're ready to go. We're ready to shine. Literally, I have to shine these leaves up. I have to put leaf shine on them so that it kind of repels the dust, because for real, y'all, they get really dusty. So my next plant has taught me a very valuable life lesson, and that is to just appreciate where you are right now. And it's great to have goals and ambitions, but I'm constantly looking for the next thing, constantly like, okay, what's next? Instead of like taking a moment to appreciate where I am now. With all that being said, this next plant, I really wanted for so long. It was incredibly hard for me to find it, and when I did find it, it wasn't that big. And since it wasn't that big, I just kind of let it drift out of my view for a little while and stopped appreciating it the way that I should have. My Monstera, Peru. I worked so hard to get this plant, and I know it's not massive. I've seen some really massive ones. She is absolutely gorgeous. Look at the leaves on it. I did have 1 or 2 leaves fall off one time because I over fertilized it. That was my fault. That was me. Not blaming Peru here. It's in a dark corner, and it really adds character to the dark corner that I have it in. Even though she's in that dark corner, she's still pushing out constant new growth. I didn't even really realize how much it had grown until I looked back at the past. I'm really amazed by what she's been doing despite my neglect and despite my lack of appreciation and attention. Really, I don't have to water her often. She hasn't really had any issues. I tried to propagate her. That was a no. Probably won't try again. Just gonna appreciate her for where she's at and how she's doing now. I want to give her more of a spotlight. I think I'm gonna actually move her up here to my office where there's like constant bright light. My Philodendron selloum. Is it pronounced selloum? I think so. These are usually not my cup of tea, but for $10 I figured I didn't have too much to lose. So I got it, I brought it home, I plopped it outside, and it stayed out there all summer, and this is what I was left with. I have recently brought it in. I brought it in maybe a month ago, and it's pushed out 2 new leaves since then. There's one, and actually it pushed out 3 new leaves since then. It's starting to grow on me a little bit. Not only do the leaves split, but they split into like this really lacy look, and the leaves are really massive, and this is not Obviously, it's not as big as they're gonna get. This is another one that takes up a lot of space, but I'm okay with that. I'm so proud of how she is doing, y'all. The care has just been so minimal, and I feel like for the amount of care or lack thereof, to be able to get such a phenomenal leaf from this is really rewarding, because I'm not putting a lot of energy into it, but they're still pushing out amazing leaves. I just feel real happy with it at this point. I'm glad that I took a chance on it and got it. I have never really had a philodendron like this before. I feel really confident about it though. Like I said, I don't do much. The pot is pretty big, so I don't have to water it too often. I checked the roots, everything was good, no pest problems, and an amazing plant. This next one isn't massive, but I have been able to propagate maybe 3 or 4 different plants, and they're all this size. This is my Monstera Standleyana or Standleyana, and the variegation on the leaves is starting to pop out a little bit more. I thought I had a half white one somewhere. I think that's... So it's starting to pop out more and more leaves. At first it was really slow growing. It was literally a 1 leaf cutting. And when I rooted it, it was having so many issues rooting, or I thought it was having issues because the leaves just kept curling under. And maybe for about 6 weeks, that's all I had, was just a curled up leaf in some water. So I just waited a little bit longer, and I started noticing roots pop out, plopped it in some soil, and this is what I have now. Once I put it on this moss pole, instead of repotting it or extending the pole, I ended up propagating it again, because I figured if I was successful the first time, I can do it a couple more times. So I cut off this top piece and propagated another one. So here's the other one, and as you can see, the leaves, let me put them side by side. As you can see, the leaves are starting to get bigger and more variegated. For some reason though, the one that I propagated was losing a lot of leaves at first, and they were kind of starting to brown like this. So I don't know what that was about. One of the things I did do was, when I propagated this one, I propagated it in perlite instead of just water, and it propagated a lot faster, and the leaves didn't curl under. So I don't know, I'm learning a whole lot more about this. It is kind of a slow grower, but I have them under grow lights. I have all of them under grow lights right now. So they're kind of growing faster than, than average, because I have them on grow lights that are literally on 24 hours a day. I don't know if that's good, but it's just that I don't have them on a timer, and I often forget to come up here and turn them off. So it's not on purpose, but the plants seem to love it, and the variegation is definitely given 24 hours grow light. So yeah, that is my Monstera Standleyana, and I'm really happy with it. I'm not really a cactus or succulent type girly, but this one kind of caught my eye, so I got it, and it's doing great now. This is my Fishbone cactus. It's not super huge, but I'm really proud of it because I grew this one from a cutting too, and it was just like 1 or 2 little pieces that were struggling for a long time. So I was really happy to see that it's doing great now. I don't water it as often as I should because it's a cactus, and I just don't water it often enough. So I actually just watered this one. It needed it bad. But you can see it's growing a bunch of new little shoots, and it grows so weird. I have this one in my kids' room because it's like funny and comical looking to me, so I thought it would go great in their room, and it doesn't need so much care and attention. It just needs water ever so often. So I figured the boys' room is a good place to keep it, and they don't really want to touch it because it has a few spikes on it, so it's a win-win. But yeah, I just thought this was so interesting. I think that is so hilarious. It reminds me of something that would be in a Dr. Seuss book. Honestly, this looks like a plant that Dr. Seuss would have illustrated. I mentioned this several months ago on, I think, a tour that I was doing. I have a bunch of these cuttings all over the house. There's another one somewhere, I think, in here, but I just keep propagating this. I don't want it to get too crazy because it is, again, in the kids' room, and it's not hanging or anything like that. This one is actually, believe it or not, in a dark spot. So for a cactus to be growing so much, even in kind of a darker area, is kind of amazing to me. I do though want to see how it would do if I put it in bright light, but that would mean I have to water it more, and I'm already struggling with watering this one. So for now, it's gonna stay where it's at, and I hope you guys love it as much as me. While we're on the topic of succulent type plants, this is my string of turtles that I don't really show you guys often enough because most of the time it is struggling. This is probably the best it's ever looked. I literally got this in like a 2-inch pot, and it did so well for so long, but I eventually, you know, I had to repot it, and it was when I repotted it that it started struggling. And you guys, if you have string of anything, you know how hard it is to get it to do right. But right now I have it in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet, and it's almost directly under the grow light. I wanted to get it fuller, and I needed more growth on the top, and it's been pushing out new growth ever since I did that. So I do water it, but I wait for it to completely dry when I water it, and I bottom water it. But you guys, honestly, every single time I pick this thing up, I'm knocking some of the little turtles off of it. So you can see like where I've knocked so many off already. So I really don't even like to move this plant. It's finally starting to do what it's supposed to do. So yeah, that is my string of turtles. You guys have heard me talk about my jungle boogie a million times because it's so big and eye-catching, but I do have a few different variations of it that aren't as big, like my little baby golden crocodile. I showed you guys this a few months ago before the leaves even started to get serrated like this, and I wasn't even sure what it was. I don't even remember where I got it really, but it's pushed out several new leaves since then, lost all of the old leaves, which is fine, it happens. Can you imagine what it's gonna be like when it's as big as my jungle boogie, when it's huge and taking up so much space? Honestly, where am I gonna put it when it does that? I don't know. They do seem to come out like a redder tint, but I got this when it was such a small baby that it struggled for a really, really long time. I had to keep it in my greenhouse cabinet for maybe 4 months, 5 months before it started pushing out like these serrated leaves. Now that it does have these, it is growing at a regular rate and doing really well, and I don't have to have it under the grow light anymore. I'm thinking about though actually putting it on a moss pole and seeing what it does. I never put these on a moss pole because how they kind of grow at like that self-heading type of pattern, but it can go on a moss pole. It definitely is moss poleable. I just made up a word, moss poleable. I love the neon color. One night I came in my office, that's where I keep this, and all the lights were off. I could still see this. It was like it was glowing in the dark. Obviously it doesn't really glow in the dark, but this baby is bright. It's one that I know it's gonna be so Instagram worthy next summer when it starts really growing. I'm gonna keep it in this bright indirect light over the winter because it's still gonna grow. It probably needs to be repotted. It's been in the same pot since I got it, but I'll repot it sometime in the spring, I'm sure. Maybe before then, I don't know. I don't know right now. It's doing good though. So you guys, I have to head out. Let me know what your favorite plant was in the comments down below. And if you enjoy content like this, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys for coming back to watch me go on and on and on about my plants. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.